Well, my clock says 6:30. I had never been quiet for such a long period of time. I want to welcome you all to the April meeting of the Parks and Waterfront Committee. I'm Barry Schneider, one of the co-chairs, and
I'm Felice Farber, the other co-chair. Welcome, everyone.
Just one quick note. As you notice on the agenda, the meeting in May has changed from the second Thursday to May 10th, Tuesday. We hope you all can join us then. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it over now to Felice.
Thank you. And before we get started with public comments, I'll turn it over to Will to make any announcements in case there's anyone who would like to make some public comments.
Well, welcome everyone. If you this is your first time joining us, you'll notice that you are muted, and you're going to stay muted through the duration of the meeting. The only people who will be unmuted at any time are the co-chairs, Felice and Barry, and anyone who is speaking for a presentation or commenting. Following each agenda item, the co-chairs will call on members of the public who wish to speak. You can participate by going to the reactions icon at the bottom of your screen and pressing the raise hand button. It's not the wave or the thumbs up, those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you're calling in from the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. If you're having problems, the chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software. It is not to ask questions of any presenters or co-chairs. They will never see those chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you'll need to go to the participant section where you'll find the raise hand feature there. And finally, we encourage you not to raise your actual hand or wave at the screen. We might miss you and not be able to see you. And so chat me if you're having problems. I'm here to help. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Felice and Barry.
Thank you, Will. And is there anyone who would like to make some public comments tonight before we get started?
Seeing no hands yet, so.
I'd like to welcome Melissa Kiefer and Risa Kaufman. Melissa and Risa are both from HSS, and Andy Moore, of Quinnell Rothschild. They're here to present on HSS's current plans along the Esplanade. So if you are here, I'd like to turn it over to you for your presentation.
Okay, Lisa or Melissa, did you want to say something first?
I think we're very excited as HSS to be able to support this project and some of the upgrades that we've been able to add since we last came to you all. And so I'll let Andy do the fun job of telling you all the fun things that we'll be bringing to the community.
I'll share my screen now to show you the plans. Can you see that now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Great. So thank you for having us back again. You might recall that we saw you last in early November of last year to show you these plans, which you approved, and we took those to PDC, and they also approved them as a schematic submission. Since then, Parks has had some dialogue with the Friends of East River Esplanade, and we talked with them about adding some adult fitness equipment to the plan. We've had a bit of back and forth coordination with the Parks Department, make sure that the equipment that we were showing was appropriate and was the kind that they use and could keep in good condition, and they thought was appropriate. So that's what I'll show you now. As you recall, the area that we're working with is the East River Esplanade from 72nd to 78th. This is the existing plan. it's pretty narrow. There's a few patches of grass. There's some trees, a few shrubs, but it really could use could really use the renovations. I'll put it that way. What we're doing was we're trying to increase the green space while still maintaining a clear path for bicycles and pedestrians and joggers to use the Esplanade. So we're following the kind of materials palette that's been established for the East River Esplanade all the way from 60th Street on up, pushing this forward with the hex block of different colors, but also using some of these sinuous lines and these areas where it says seating areas and pathway. We're trying to increase a little bit of the green space and provide places for people to sit and relax kind of out of the mainstream of the bicycles and joggers. This is what it looks like now through this section. That's the little Con Ed building in the back. And this is our rendering of what the proposal is. Again, the two-tone hex pavers, some new furnishings, more lush plantings. All of this will be irrigated. We're shifting lights around to make sure we have adequate lighting on the Esplanade and everything feels safe. So all of that you've seen before. And what's different now is we're adding this section that at 78th Street, there's the pedestrian overpass that goes across to the park on the other side of the FDR. The beginning of the ramp going up is this kind of dark gray part where it actually goes down to the ground, so you can't access underneath that. But north of that is where the ramp moves up high enough so that you have clearance that you could have the equipment there. We've coordinated with parks to put the equipment here because putting it under the ramp gives it some shelter, shade from the sun, and also a little bit of protection from the rain, which is good for the equipment and also gives the people exercising kind of an opportunity to step off the main path and be in their own kind of space there. So what we're providing here is a sit-up bench, some steps. I'll show you images of these in a moment. Arm bikes that you pedal with your hands. A vertical chest press, which is also usable as ADA accessible. There's pull-up bars that are also at 2 heights for ADA. There's pull-ups for resistance bands, the stretchy rubber bands that people use, and then ADA accessible parallel bars as well. So this is an elevation. So you can see to the left, on the left end, there's not really clearance to have equipment. And then as soon as it gets high enough for people to move under, we have the kind of lower level exercise equipment, a sit-up bench, the steps, and then where it's taller, they can have the things like the pull-up bars, the resistance, the pull-up for resistance band, and the parallel bars. Right next to it, we're locating a drinking fountain, which seems convenient for the people working out. And behind the exercise equipment, we're showing a chain link fence at 6 feet and 8 feet so that people have some protection from being right next to the FDR drive. And this is the equipment. It's all made by a company called Compan, that's with a K. And they provide exercise equipment and play equipment in many of the parks. They're a well-established, reputable company, and they're very good quality equipment. So this is the pull-up for the resistance bands, the vertical chest press, the pull-up bars like chin-up bars, parallel bars, the arm bike, the sit-up bench, and these 2 levels of steps. There'll be underneath it, let me go back here for 1 second. The blue squares are safety surface tiles so that if anybody falls or has any mishap that way, it's cushioned the same way that the play areas are in many of the parks. And that's pretty much the presentation. So if you have any questions about the location, about the equipment or the process, or have anything at all, we'd be happy to answer.
Would you mind talking a little bit about the lighting that will be there, since it'll be under the ramp?
Yeah, it's pretty open actually on both sides. And let's see if it shows here. The lighting along the Esplanade is typically those the B poles, the kind of park light poles that are there now. And I think honestly they're just kind of off the sheet on this side. I believe there's one over here, but we can. It might be a good point, and be happy to shift them around to make sure that the lighting is such that it doesn't feel dark underneath there. I will say that the ramp is open on both sides, so it gets light actually from the highway, and then it's open to the east as well.
Yeah, I think it's just a question as well as making sure that it's a safe area,
Sure.
and that it doesn't become some kind of encampment. But I
Sure.
see we have some questions from members of the public. So Jennifer Ratner, we can unmute Jennifer.
Jennifer, just look for the button on your screen to confirm unmuting. There you go.
Great, thank you. Sorry, it's a little slow on this end. So thank you so much. This is great. As a member of Friends of the East River Esplanade, we've been, begging for fitness equipment forever and ever, and pun intended, twisting the arm of HSS, or the leg, to get it done. And we're so thrilled that it's actually happening. I actually had a number of questions. One was about the lighting, which is a perennial problem on the waterfront. So there are lots of lights on the waterfront, but our group is, forever actually calling because the lights are never on, or never on at the right time. And so I think this is the time that we should be able to coordinate lighting on the waterfront. And make sure that we're not just putting it in because it goes in. And I know that Parks is on here on this call, and they're always, there's like a turf issue between Parks and DOT for the lighting. Lighting is a DOT issue, but it needs to be something that's coordinated, and shouldn't be, we are constantly getting a runaround, call DOT, we don't know the number for DOT, and writing letters. So like, this is the time that as leaders of this, and I'm sure you want to see your beautiful work well lit, that you can start it from the get-go. And we had also spoken to HSS about the same thing that Felice asked about, which is that putting some kind of special lighting underneath there, whether it's a band or, I'm thinking like a giant LED kind of shape of light under there. And that leads to the other issue, which is safety. And we'd already spoken to HSS about possibly putting one of the HSS security cameras on there. We've been waiting for security cameras all up and down the Esplanade, literally for more than a decade. We've had ribbon cutting saying that like one security camera was even coming, and it never even came. So like, this is another small thing. It's not really a design issue, but that we could really take the lead here and get at least a couple of security cameras in this area, especially with the enhanced security problems that the city's been experiencing, because we wouldn't want it to be a locale for security issues. And then the fencing was another issue that we'd spoken about with HSS. Like, this is the opportunity to make this something that looks really fabulous. Like, it's fabulous that there's equipment there, and I get the the whole necessity of chain link fence, but it could look fabulous. It could have vines on it. It could have something on it. There's a lot of there's a lot of talk. I know I'm not an architect like you or a landscape designer, but I know there's a lot of talk in the community about walls that cut down pollution besides sound protective walls. And some of those have vines on them, and the idea is to absorb pollutants, so it could be something funky and creative, or with something colorful, something to make it not just an ugly chain link fence on that side. So that's another thing. And then another one was putting signage right there so that people know how to use the exercise equipment, who should be using it, who should not, meaning children. And also that's a way to identify it for HSS. So those were the main things. I think it's great that you're using, we had looked at Compan as a vendor. I know they're really reputable, and people who work out really like them. So that's really exciting. The drinking fountain's great. I love the way everything else looks. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And one of the things I was thinking as well is there a way of doing a fence that's a little bit more attractive than a chain link fence? So I'm gonna skip over Barbara and go to another member of the public, and then go back to Barbara. So Craig.
Thank you, Jennifer. I guess you stole all of my ideas or comments. I would also add to the signs, no dogs. That's imperative, I believe. And I did all the research and interviewed Compan and several other companies for this project. So I'm extremely familiar with all the equipment and the manufacturers and so on. Andrew, is there someone at Parks, because I exercise just as a background outside in the parks every day for the last 10 years. So I know what equipment works, what doesn't. John Jay was an utter failure when equipment was put in that had moving parts. None of it worked. And I'm just reflecting on a conversation from the other night pertaining to having warranties. To have a warranty on something that is bound to not work just doesn't make sense. It just shouldn't be in there in the first place. Like the chest press machine, I believe we were referring to. So I'm just wondering who at Parks, and I understand the mandates pertaining to ADA requirements, but it also needs to be practical. It just, to have it check a bunch of boxes, but not be practical where people can use it on a regular basis, use it properly on a regular basis, just doesn't make sense. So I'm wondering, because I know there are certain things that are ADA compliant that are better suggestions than what's in here, because the majority of these are ADA compliant, and it's certainly more than 50%. So is there someone that I can coordinate? It sounds like you're like the landscape architect or the architect per se, and it sounds like Parks did the equipment, but I have to take issue with the equipment that's been chosen.
Well, okay. We're the landscape architects that are working for HSS. We've been coordinating with Parks. We've been picking the equipment and going back and forth with them. They have people in Parks that recommend what works and what doesn't in Parks. Just be curious. I think the ADA things they're ADA accessible. They're not. It doesn't preclude able-bodied people from using them. And I don't know, when you say it isn't practical, specifically what it is you're talking about.
Okay, I'm 6'3". The pull-up bars are 5'6" and 7 feet. To do a proper pull-up, neither of those heights are practical. For someone who is 6 feet tall, maybe they could do it on the 7-footer, but the 5'6", not practical at all. How tall, what's the height on the pull-up for the resistance bands? That piece.
Yeah, I don't know offhand.
Okay.
I mean, it looks like it's probably taller than the 7 feet, but I don't know for certain. I can check on that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the parallel bars are fine. The steps are fine. The vertical chest press, that probably will not be used. And I mean, in my conversations with Compan and other manufacturers, they suggested not using anything with movable parts. And we visited the installation down at Stuytown, which did have movable parts. And after it was installed, they told us that had they done it again, they would not use movable parts for a variety of different reasons.
Okay.
Arm bike, you know, same thing.
Thank you.
So, I mean, and the sit-up bench, I mean, it's okay, but I mean, I would suggest a different piece of equipment for lower back, which is called a Roman chair, which is more functional, more practical. It has several different uses. But I'm sure they have other pieces that are ADA compliant. You know, like my point is that I'm there all the time and I see who uses it and how they use it. And some of these pieces just won't be used.
So
And if
thank
they
you.
are used after a while, I don't see them lasting.
So thank you for your comments, Craig. Is there a way that we can revisit the equipment pieces chosen, something that can stand the test of time? Or can you go back and take another look at this?
And we'll talk with Parks again. I mean, they have their people who do this in parks all over the city. And I know you might still disagree with what they pick, but we'll go back and coordinate with them about some alternative pieces if we need to do that.
Thanks, I appreciate
I mean,
that.
I've been at parks all over the city, so I know what type of equipment is implemented at different places, primarily in Manhattan. So what's out there is significantly much more practical than what's been shown here.
Right. I will say we're also somewhat constrained by the space we have, because there are, you'll see on the plans, there are these dotted lines, which are the fall zones where you're required to have a clear area and the safety surface underneath. So it's just another factor.
Understood. And I think, you know, the original plan was to put it near the Con Ed area, and seeing the benches and so on, that really looks actually really nice. And it does make sense as to where you did put it under the bridge. So, you know, but kudos for that adjustment. But I mean, I just, you know, if you're the landscape architect or the architect, I'm not sure how you're going to have that conversation to relay my points with, and by the way, just, you know, when I did talk to the manufacturers, one of them, and I can't remember which one it was in particular, said, you're the first person that I've talked to that actually ever uses the equipment. Everyone else is just on some board.
Well, we do have a representative from Parks here who has their hand up. Leslie, do you want to address this issue?
Yes, I just wanted to say that, as Andy said, he has been working with our specs and estimating department, who are very well versed in the equipment, you know, not only just in Manhattan, but all over the city. And we've chosen the equipment that does hold up the best. But the other thing is we do coordinate with our ADA accessibility coordinator. He's in on those meetings with the people that are talking about the fitness equipment. So some of the equipment you may not use, but other people may be using and may use in the future if we put this equipment in. But we'd be happy, you know, if you have specific suggestions for pieces that you would want to see go in here, we can address that, I guess, one by one. I know that there was the original proposal, but as Andy said, also, this is a much narrower space. So we also chose equipment that fits in the space. So if there's something.
Can I coordinate with you, Leslie, or who should I coordinate?
No, you can.
Craig, good to see you. Barry Schneider here. Craig, send your request to the community board, to Will Brightbill, and he'll forward on to the right people at Parks.
Right, it would actually go, it would go to the borough.
CB8M.com.
Right.
Info at CB8M.
So thank you. Let's move
Sure.
on to Barbara Rudder.
Go ahead, Barbara.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yep.
First of all, I just want to give you and Jennifer the biggest thank you. You know, Jennifer is great. I know she's been working on this, and thank you. I have several comments. Some, you know, what Jennifer has said. Can't we have the wall like further down by the hospitals? There's a wall rather than a chain link fence that not only looks better, but does give more of a sound barrier. And is that possible? And if there is a chain link fence, I think the idea of some shrubbery or something that really does block the, not only looks better, but the noise is, it's hard to have a conversation. The noise is often so bad. So that's one, is that a possibility to look into? I don't know if you want to answer the questions.
I can answer that question.
Okay.
It's basically nothing. If you look at the plan, Andy, you want to go back to the plan? Each piece of equipment has what we call a safety zone. So you can see those in the dotted lines, which take up most of the safety surface area. So there is no room for a planting bed, and there is no room for the construction of a wall.
Okay. I wasn't thinking, maybe I was thinking of ivy or something that grows, something that Jennifer had said.
But ivy needs a plant bed, and a plant bed needs to be 3 feet wide. So that would preclude putting the equipment in there.
I also want to echo that I think we need cameras for 2 reasons, not only to protect us, but that area is constantly graffitied and dirtied and so on. Cameras may discourage people from doing harm to the equipment. And that's a second comment I have, that possibly to look into. I do want to comment on the previous speaker. A lot of the equipment doesn't look like their senior equipment. The push-up bar, I can't imagine doing push-ups and those tall things or whatever. They were very popular in John Jay, not as senior equipment, but more for men for the most part, maybe not exclusively, that needed that heavier workout. So a lot of the equipment, I think if we're talking about senior equipment, it is a different point of view. It's hard for me to imagine not to have anything that does have moving parts. And I was very involved with the John Jay equipment. It's something that, you know, we didn't choose. It was the Parks Department, and they were supposed to take care of it. If there are moving parts, just like seesaws or swings or things like that, there's going to be maintenance that's going to be necessary, and is maintenance built into this with the idea of keeping track of it and making sure that the parts do remain okay. And I mean, I wish this was here during COVID. I haven't gone to the gym because of COVID, and I'm flabbier than I used to be, which wasn't so unflabby. So I just thank you, and that's some of my comments.
Okay, and next is Judy Schneider.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It looks quite lovely, and I think it will be a big improvement for that dead space under the bridge. We might consider doing this or something like it in other areas under bridges. Could you please make sure that you send, maybe you have already, Will, the plan so that we have it as part of our record? And
Sure.
I have a question. I have 2 questions. One, how do you spell the name of the company that's providing the equipment?
It's KOMPAN, Compan.
Thank you. And the last question is, the color that we're looking at up on the screen now is different than the color that's the drawing that you have showing the equipment. And then in the lower right-hand corner, there are 2 squares. with the color of the safety equipment, which is
Yeah.
different than what's on the screen now. So what is it going to be more like?
Yeah, well, it'll be more like these samples,
Like the blue and the gray that we're looking at now?
right? That's
I
for
think
this
that's,
blue
I
and
think
lighter
that's
blue.
probably better as far as wear and dirt goes to have the darker color. Leslie, is this color safety service? This is not what I see in our parks here in Community Board 8. If it needs to be replaced or repaired, is this something that Parks Department, these colors, will be able to get?
I'll speak to that. Leslie can join in, but as part of the contract, we're providing 100% replacement that parks can, that's part of the HSS, what they're providing, which parks can store so that they can replace any tiles if they become damaged.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, we've been talking with the manufacturer of the safety surface, and they've gained some experience after the various storms in New York City with better ways of fastening the safety surface down so that it won't be uplifted and destroyed if there's any inundation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Next is Boaz.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is, I understand you're still in the design phase, but do you have any ETA? When is the new park is going to be open? And the second request to basically to the Community Board 8 is I noticed all this material for next meetings, if you can add it to the material, to the agenda, so the public will be able to review the PDF before the meeting. I hope it makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think Jennifer had wanted to make another comment. I'm not sure if you still do, or if Jennifer's still here.
No, she's shaking her head no.
Okay.
Could I maybe just give a really quick response? We didn't respond to Jennifer's questions. We'll definitely look at the lighting and make sure, even if it's shifting them around, with the signage, particularly about how people should use the equipment, that's typically provided by the company along with the equipment. So they have diagrams saying how it's supposed to be used, who's supposed to use it, that will come with the equipment. So that should be taken care of. Okay.
Let me jump in here. Boaz, regarding your question about the plans that we received this evening, they will be part of the minute. They'll be included in the minutes of this meeting. That'll be available on the Community Board website in a few days.
And Craig, you wanted to ask another question?
Yeah, actually, I was going to ask where it was going to be located, but Barry answered that. Just to go back to, I believe it was Barbara who mentioned the equipment that primarily men use it. It's actually the smaller percentage of men who do use the equipment. Most of it, at John Jay at least, is women who use it with trainers. And also, I think, in addition to just that subject, trainers, I don't know if HSS has any, if they're going to be using it all in an institutional capacity, but there should be something on the sign that says no group classes or something of that, because there are people who get paid who run classes, and it's just not fair to the general public for someone to come and usurp this while they're getting paid. And I know that there's some verbiage that the parks uses about permits and so on, but that's something that I think should be included in addition to the other, usual standard language about dogs and kids and so on. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So if there are no further questions, I would really like to thank you, Andy, for coming and presenting today. This is very exciting. The community has been really looking forward to having exercise equipment in the park. You may have heard many times, this was really a top priority. So thank you so much. This is really exciting to see it moving forward. And it's great to see that you working with the Parks Department have been able to find an unused spot and really squeeze it in. I'd like to emphasize the need for lighting and some way to make sure that it and a security camera, just to make sure it's a safe space that everyone can use. And I'd just like to again thank you so much. This is exciting.
Let me have my 2 cents. Maybe 3 cents. To use a word that Craig was using, kudos to the hospital of special surgery for stepping up and solving a problem that has been plagued this community board for several years now. We've made all kinds of efforts to find a location for adult exercise equipment, and they stepped in and solved the problem, and I greatly appreciate that. And with that, unless there's something else, we're going to move the agenda. Police?
That is
wait,
it.
I think Judy
Steve.
wants to say something or ask a question.
Oh, and Steve Simon has his hand up too.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Something happened to my screen and I can't raise my hand. I can't do anything right now.
He needs exercise equipment.
Yeah, the question was brought up several times by Craig about signage about dogs. Do we normally put, this is for, I guess, Parks Department, do we normally put signs on the Esplanade about dogs and where they can and can't go?
Someone from Parks want to answer that?
Maybe Steve Simon has his hand raised, can answer that.
Yeah, I tell you, I'm not sure. I mean, I assume that we have our standard consolidated rule signs, which would basically say that off-leash dogs are only allowed in the dog runs. I mean, otherwise, some people can obviously, they can walk their dogs on a leash along the Esplanade. But I think that would be the only place where we might address it on the consolidated rule signs that should be at the entrances.
Okay, yeah, I just wouldn't want dogs relieving themselves on the safety padding.
Yeah, and there is actually no entrance since it's under the bridge itself.
Well, we could certainly consider putting in a sign that says no dogs allowed or no pets allowed. We actually we don't discriminate against just now cover all pets.
Thank you.
Can I just say something on the camera issue? We've had some experience trying to install our own cameras in various places, and what we have concluded is that the best and most effective way to have security cameras is to have them installed by the PD and to have them as part of the PD system so that they can be much more easily monitored and footage can be much more easily retrieved, and the cameras can be maintained along with other PD cameras. So my suggestion would be, if you want to pursue that idea, that you talk to the PD and ask them if they want to install them at this location.
Is there a way of coordinating this with the construction so that it's not a separate thing that PD has to do, but it still links to them?
Yeah, one suggestion would be to install empty conduit as part of this project, so that when the cameras, or if the cameras get worked out, they could go in without tearing up the work that had just been done.
All right. Well, maybe that's how we should handle it.
Yes.
But we should try to have a conversation with the PD, and it may be that we need we may need some assistance to get it funded from the local council member.
Correct.
Okay. Jennifer,
Yeah, sorry, just to those 2 points. So in terms of the dog signage, so yes, we do have dog signage, no dog signage on the Esplanade. It took, like honestly, like about 3 years of asking various entities, I will say, to get the official signage, and it's not really quite the signage that works to keep the dogs off. So that's why I think something separate from the park signage, that be clear, match the, and I do think there should be something other than just the little whatever comes from Compan. And I've seen it actually, and I was in a park in the Bronx recently that had Compan and had all the signage, but just something that sort of stands apart. In addition, that is specific to this place, saying no dogs, that coordinates with the Compan signage. And that we should get from the get-go so that it's not another like 3 years to get it. And to that point, that's what I was saying about the security camera. The last go round of Rockefeller's rebuilding, which was years ago, we did secure from the council person money for a security camera from the NYPD, had a ribbon cutting before the pandemic, and that camera is still not up. So that's why we've been talking with HSS that perhaps the camera could be part of, that's a nice route to go because the more cameras, the better. And we should try to get an NYPD camera as well. But to get a camera that hooks into, HSS has a huge camera system. And the only camera I've ever secured to look onto the Esplanade actually came from East River Plaza, from a private entity where they were able to readjust one of their many security cameras. So it now, or at least as of about a year ago, focused onto the Esplanade because it was so impossible, honestly, to get any municipal entity to get a security camera on. So I think a good thing would be from the get-go, like at least to get HSS to incorporate it somehow. And then we could also go to the PD and to Councilmember Menon to try to also secure at least another additional camera or cameras.
thank you, Jennifer. Judy, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I've been spending my time talking to Julie Menon's office and the police department about the money Ben Kalos got for cameras. Some of them were to be on the Esplanade at the pavilion and going up. And they're trying to work that out. Supposedly the cameras were put in, but they weren't. Nobody seems to know where they are. And actually had a conversation with Julie's office last week, and she's now following up with the inspector about it. I think it has to be with the police department so that if anything goes wrong or is happening on the Esplanade, they can see it and they can respond to it. If HSS has the camera, they're not going to respond to something bad happening on the Esplanade.
Okay, thank you, Judy. Thank you so much for the presentation. This is really exciting. Move the agenda along if there's nothing else.
Okay, my turn. Thank you very much, Felice. And that was a wonderful presentation. Now we're going to hear from Sheena Kaufman, District Manager of New York City Parks, on the Parks Department update.
Good evening, everyone. You can hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. So some updates. The Tramway Plaza is open, as everyone knows, to the public. The Roosevelt Island Operation Corp completes the punch list work, planting, fixing mixed-max house. When they were removed, I guess earlier when this thing first started, and we also waiting for the big belly trash receptacles. In the meantime, we put 3 additional cast iron trash bins on the plaza. in addition to when we get the big bellies, from this from the Roosevelt Island Operation Court. The John J. Sitton area project is ahead of schedule and may be completed as soon as next month. They're way ahead of schedule because the completion date was September. So keep our fingers crossed to see if that happens by next month. The Honey Locust project is 20% completed and is due to be completed January 17th, 2023. And this coming Monday, we're going to have the Ukraine, I guess, rally at Carl Schultz, starting at 5 o'clock and ending at 7. Just if anyone wants to participate and come, it's going to start at 5 o'clock at Carl Schultz Park on 86 and Eastern Avenue on the plaza. And that's all I got.
Okay, I see we have, thank you very much, Sheena. I see we have a question from Mary Hawk.
You have to unmute. I didn't hear anything. No, go ahead, push the button.
Okay, got it. Nice to be here. Nice to see Sheena face to face. We've talked on the phone a time or two. I'm here because of East 96th Street, and we've been cleaning up around the davit and the boat hoist there. However, there's a ladder that's on the other side of the chain link fence that we haven't seemed to be able to get out of there. And just maybe you can help. It's
I'll look to see whose ladder it belongs to.
Because someone must have
I'm just writing it down.
Tossed it in there.
Okay. All right. I'll have the staff look to see if they can remove it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mary, before you get away, what's the status of the crew?
Well, we are still talking to God and everybody, including the EDC, and there's some kind of interest in including it to the plans. CB8M is approved a resolution on behalf of East River Crew. And of course, we plan to also, once we have that one, to come to CB8 as well. But basically, they seem to be saying that they're not in the design phase yet, which is really crazy. This is Mr. Ortiz coming from him, who's the EDC liaison, I guess, with community boards and stuff like that. So it's a work in progress.
Thank you, Mary. We can reach out to Community Board 11, and after they form the resolution and pass approval, we'll get it to our board and we'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Anybody else for Sheena's report? Okay, let's move on to old business. Seeing no hands, let's move on to new business. Barbara Rudder and Jennifer Ratner.
Hi, should we have had a resolution to approve the equipment or anything like that, or it's too premature?
Felice, how do you feel about that?
We can. I'm not sure that it's needed.
Maybe Jennifer would have a feeling about it. I don't know.
Leslie, do you guys need it for at parks?
We do need it to go back to PDC
You shall
to-
have it.
to amend it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Barbara.
You're welcome.
Before we, Jennifer, before we get to you,
I want
let's,
to get deflabbed, Barry.
excuse me?
I want to get deflabbed.
Yeah, okay, understood, understood. Walk around the block 5 times.
I think it's a hopeless case, but
Thank you. Felicia, you want to form a resolution?
Sure. So propose a resolution to support the installation of exercise equipment in the park between 78th and 77th and 78th Street. And we request that it include increased lighting and that the Parks Department and HSS take a look at the quality of the equipment, or not necessarily quality, but equipment that doesn't move, and also look at the installation of security lighting
And no pet signage.
and no pet signage.
can I just say the asking them to get equipment that doesn't move worries me a little bit, because I mean, so much of the equipment we want would be for knees and, you know, the foot things going back and forth and some arm things. I just think they're going to be mostly the pull-up, which, I mean, maybe some women do it, but not women of my age won't be doing that much. I mean, I'd like to meet them if they do. You know, I would like to not limit personally. I would prefer not limiting if it's okay with everybody. But maybe to relook generally to make sure that it's stable equipment or whatever words. But
Yeah, I think we have to tone it down a little bit.
So would it be better to phrase it, ask them to relook at the equipment to meet all needs of seniors, people with disabilities, and people of various heights, since I'm on the other end of the vertical spectrum?
Yeah. We'll work the word out, but that's essentially
thank
what
you.
we're on.
Great.
Okay, let's take a vote of the board members present.
Judy is
gonna
waving her
lower-
hand.
Judy, do you have a question before calling the question?
Yeah, I think we got to work on the wording if everybody will let us do it. Because asking them to relook at this, I mean, they've looked at it very carefully.
Right.
I think the wording has to be different. It makes it sound like they didn't do their job, which is not the case.
I agree with Judy.
So if you leave it up to the chairs to do the writing, then I call the question.
Of course, you're out of order. You realize that, Mr. Schneider.
Well, yeah, I know, but so what?
I can call the question, and I do. Is there a second? I see Barbara Rutter waving her hand furiously. All those opposed, not voting for cause or voting no, abstaining, raise your hand if you're a board member or a member of the committee. Seeing none, the motion as adjusted, as edited, was approved. Thank you very much, Barbara.
I'm going to really quickly read the names of the board members who are here, just for the visual record. We've got Judy Schneider, public member, Barry Schneider, Felice Farber, Barbara Rutter, Irma Torres, public member, and Rita Popper. Did I miss anyone? Raise your hand real quickly if I did. Nope, that's all.
Good. Okay.
Okay, great.
Now we go back to Jennifer Ratner, who had her hand raised.
Hi, so thanks a lot. So 2 other issues beyond this very good news and this new redo that I think are really, really, really important to the community. The first one, our group has been getting, so many emails and inquiries, Facebook questions, et cetera, is that, we've been waiting for this 68th to 70th Street to reopen. It's been postponed again and again, and I understand that. And the date I had from the commissioner's office in Manhattan is May 17th for a reopening of that. But lo and behold, unbeknownst to me, and for those of you who haven't been recently on the Esplanade, 74th Street, because of the HSS construction, is now closed off. So it's essentially the same thing as 68th to 70th for anyone who runs or bikes or wants to have like a long contiguous walk on what little waterfront we have. And while I use the kitchen analogy all the time, which is, you know, you can't get a new kitchen unless you close down your entire kitchen. But in the meantime, you need like a little microwave and a little mini fridge. And in general, that little microwave and mini fridge is a small pathway on either side. I understand that this is a very narrow area, but when Rockefeller University did its construction, and it was also a tricky area, maybe not quite as narrow, but there were areas that were as narrow, they maintained a contiguous path. And so, and we're able to alternate the path between kind of like east and west. And, you know, having this pathway closed now, it never is going to, 68th to 70th might as well not have reopened. So we have to be very vigilant about, you know, the construction going forward and what it means to the community. It's you know, it's actually a real issue. I was getting a lot of inquiries through our website and as I said, social media about that 68th to 70th. And then all of a sudden people are asking about, you know, and it's only been like a week that the 74th Street's been closed down. And it's also quite confusing signage that was put up, these yellow signs, if any of you have seen that. So I'm hoping that the community board can maybe help with this issue. I see that our board member, Risa, who I think she's still on this call, and she knows that all of the members of Friends of the East River Esplanade are really concerned about this. So that was one of two issues I want to bring up. The second is our sign, you know, which was disapproved by the Parks Department. I showed it to Community Board 8 1 or 2 meetings ago. That was going to be just a placemaking sign that had a map, a schematic map of the Esplanade on one side, and on the other side, it had historical images of the waterfront, you know, 150 years ago, the first run up the Esplanade of the New York City Marathon, those kind of things, and had, you know, it was going to have our logo on it, just like all waterfronts around the city. This is the typical and very much in keeping with signs, hundreds of signs that are in waterfronts and parks around the city. If anyone's interested, you know, my phone is just jam-packed with signage of similar nature and all different sizes from, you know, ranging from Brooklyn to the Bronx. I have them from all over the city, and you can Google them. They're not it was not an earth-shaking sign. And indeed, it was only one sign that we were paying to design. We would pay to tweak the design. HSS was going to pay to make the sign and to install it. And it's something that came out of an initiative from the community board asking why there's no signage on the Esplanade, that, you know, started as an inquiry about a decade ago. So this is the time. So those two issues, in addition to what we had before.
Thank you. Anyone here from Parks or HSS who want to address those issues?
Melissa Kiefer. Barry from HSS.
Yes,
She's-
Judy, you're unmuted.
Oh,
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Keeper from HSS. I think I don't see anyone else from, Leslie is on, but for Parks. HSS is committed to getting the Esplanade open as soon as possible. As you said, Jennifer, you know, we want to make sure that we have it closed so that everyone can be safe during the construction. It is a more narrow space of the Esplanade, and we are using a bit of a different methodology for our construction than Rockefeller did, just because they're different buildings. But we are working closely with Parks to see to pressure test ourselves to make sure that we can keep the Esplanade open as much of it as possible for as long as possible. I will say also that once the 68th to 70th Street Parks project opens, the pedestrian ramp on 71st will reopen, and you will be able to continue southbound from 71st Street. So we are building a temporary pedestrian ramp going southbound that'll get you to 70th Street. And so we are working on the footings for that as we speak.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
Of course.
Mubin.
Hello, Barry. How are you?
Welcome. Good.
Thank you. I really don't have any comment on the Esplanade. I just wanted to say hello to everyone and just mention that Muslim Volunteers for New York will be doing their annual spring planting and park beautification on Saturday, May 21st. We want to invite all the members of the community board and obviously the members of the community to come. We are hoping it'll be a very fun event. At the same time, get a lot done for the park, a lot of cleanup. We've got some new ideas for the event this spring. So I invite all of you to please join us. And if you can please mark your calendars, we will be there from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And look forward to seeing all of you there.
Moonbeam, do people need to sign up for that or just show up?
Yes. So I'm just announcing because this is now when the committee meeting is happening. But yes, I will send all the details to Barry and the community board, and with the registration link, etc., that you can put in your newsletter as well as in your social media.
Okay, and we can announce it again at the May 10th committee meeting as we be a little closer.
Amazing. That would be amazing. Yeah. So by then, definitely the registration link will be up and running, because we have roughly, right now Parks has lifted the, the ban they had on the number of volunteers we could have. So most likely we'll have at least anywhere from 150 to 180 volunteers. So it'll be on a first come first served basis. So if everyone can sign up as soon as possible, that'd be great.
Terrific.
Thank you. Before we jump ahead, Leslie,
thank you so much.
You have an answer as to why the sign by the Friends of the East River Esplanade was turned down? Can you address it now?
Yes, it went through our marketing department, and we have we only do custom or special signages for conservancies that have an MOU, a legal agreement with Parks Department. Something like the Battery Park Conservancy, you'll see specialized signage down there. They do have an MOU for upkeep of the signage. And that it would have to go through our marketing department and also through PDC for approvals. As I understand it right now, Friends of the East River Esplanade does not have an MOU with the Parks Department. So maybe at a future date, we could revisit that. I don't know if Steve's still on the phone, but it looks like he may not be.
I understand that. And we've actually been asking, this is probably off the community board, but we've been asking about this actually, not just for months, but for years, and asking for signage. And then it came out of the community board asking for a sign. Everybody wants a sign with a map and something interesting on the other side. You can walk parks all over the city, and that's the issue. And we've gone over kind of this is the first time I'm hearing that the MOU is the actual issue. I was told it was just disapproved and actually had to call to find that out. Even though we presented it, months ago, in 2021, not 2022. We haven't been told what's wrong with the sign, and the MOU is something surmountable. Like, we ensure we have a permanent bait station on the Esplanade, which is a lot bigger and much more complicated than a small sign. And it actually has a sign that we designed on it, not just the park sign, but images of fish. And we we know how to go through all the proper approvals. We carry insurance for it, and we indemnify the city, and we agree to maintain it. And we worked with the parks legal department on it. So we've never been approached to say, oh, that's the only problem with the sign. Your lawyers, and we work with Schulte Roth, and the lawyers can work out a contract and to put this sign on the Esplanade and to get the proper agreement to maintain it, which we have already with the bait station further north at 100th Street, which is, a huge multi-ton steel piece of equipment that has lighting and scoops up water from the East River and is much more complicated than a very small sign.
Can I ask you, Jennifer, the approval process for that? I know that we saw it at in-house for the bait station. I don't remember it going to PDC. Who did the approvals come from for the bait station?
It came from the deputy commissioner of the Parks Department at that time, who was, from Commissioner directly from the commissioner's office, from the citywide Parks
okay,
Commissioner.
okay, we
Hey,
can
may I
talk about that.
suggest-
We could talk about that offline, I guess.
Exactly.
Thank you.
My
Thank you.
suggestion would be,
Okay.
thank you. You
Thank
two
you.
will get together and resolve this. Okay.
Thank you.
The next hand I see is our board member, Barbara Rutter.
I see you again. Jennifer, you solved a question I had. I was walking south from 81st Street, and I suddenly realized I had to go back to 77th or 78th Street, whatever it was, because I saw it blocked off, and I was surprised that it was blocked off so quickly. I didn't know about 74th. We need signs both going north and south, because you walk, Barry knows this, I called him up, and you do too, Jennifer. I ended up walking 10 blocks out of my way, because I walked 5 blocks one way and had to go back, I had to go back 5 blocks, actually 15 blocks, and then back 15 blocks on the street. So we really do need signs, just to say it. And I will say, in terms of this discussion about what you need for a sign, makes one shake their head and say it's red tape in the city, I guess. I can't imagine what's dangerous about a sign, but anyway, that's off the line. But I hope we do get some signs, even temporarily, so people don't walk out of the way. And I'm not alone. You see loads of people doing that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, Barbara. Melissa, I saw your hand up, and now you disappeared.
Yes, I just wanted to let you guys know that we've been working with Parks on the signs, and Leslie, maybe there's a way we could work on additional signage that HSS is happy to put up to help people navigate if needed.
Going the right
And we'll
direction.
revisit that.
Yeah, I'm sure we could find something within our park signage system that
Great.
we could use. Thanks.
Of course.
And thank you. Rita Popper, please.
I want to thank you for the presentation. It was really excellent. And of course, I'm going to ask you, what is the status of getting the engineering drawings for Rupert Park? Where do we stand? Anybody? I guess, is Steve Simon here? Nope.
No, Steve left, but you still have Leslie and.
I'm not sure I understand the question. When you say the engineering drawings, we're actually.
But where do we stand? We have all the money and we saw preliminary.
We're working on, we've gotten PDC approval, and we're working on construction drawings right now. So we're continuing to prepare those drawings to work with our landscape architects and our engineers.
Right. And is there an approximate time where things will start moving? Construction.
Okay, I can tell you, I'm looking it up on our capital tracker, which is always very good to look at. October of 2022 is our deadline for design. That's when we're going to be transmitting. And it usually takes us about 9 months to go through procurement. So you would see the procurement process is the legal process. We put things out to bid. We award it to a contractor, and then the construction would start about 9 months after October 2022. So then it'll be in construction for about a year.
Thank you very much. And Lise, will you put Mubin's dates in your minutes?
Judy has the minutes. I'll see that they're in there.
Thank you.
Good. Mary? You have to unmute yourself, Mary. Now you're unmuted.
Okay, Leslie Peoples, on these contract drawings that are being done and announcing that they're supposed to be finished by October 2022, is there mention of East River Crew and the boat launch at East 96th Street, which we've been advocating for and sending messages to tons of people and getting tons of signatures for. Have you ever heard that there is a boat launch at East 96th Street that would require some special attention to remain there?
And I'm not sure, as this relates to Rupert Park, are you saying?
No, East 96th Street.
Okay, that's not a capital project right now. So I am the design director for capital projects. That may be on one of Steve Simon's lists for future funding, it sounds like. So I would have to send that question back to Steve Simon. So I will make a note of it and I will ask him about that.
Okay.
Looks like he left the call.
I will also talk to Steve Simon and tell him that that is your reply, because there's getting to be a lot of letters and a lot of people advocating for this. And it's something that has to happen at a certain time or it cannot happen. And it would involve the Army Corps of Engineers possibly, and all kinds of things. And so this is why it's very important that everybody keep this on the radar screen.
Okay, I will also mention it to Steve. Thanks.
And I shall too.
Please.
Good. Thank you. See no further hands. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I will move to adjourn.
And Rita signals a second, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much for a very stimulating evening. All have a good night and a happy holidays to all. Good night.
Thank you.